Hi again. In A History of Christianity by Kenneth Scott Latourette, page 254, in the chapter Earthen Vessels, the exceeding greatness of power that was demonstrated in the early church's conquest of the Roman Empire. This subsection is New Wine in Old Wineskins, the Power of Christ and the Power of Caesar. The relation of Christianity to the Roman state poses even deeper questions than those raised in the preceding paragraphs. As we have hinted, we see here two powers, the power of Christ and the power of Caesar. In one of his parables, Jesus declared that new wine could not safely be put into old wineskins, for if it were, the skins would break and the wine would be lost. Did that prove to be true in the case of the Roman Empire and the Christian gospel? Would the exceeding greatness of the power destroy the earthen vessels and in the process itself be dissipated or be gravely and perhaps irreparably weakened? To what extent, if at all, were the decline and fall of the Roman Empire due to Christianity? Again and again, as we have seen, while Christianity was spreading, the accusation was made that it was bringing mortal illness to the empire and to the structure of Greco-Roman society. Repeatedly, the Christian apologists addressed themselves to answering that charge. Outstanding was The City of God by Augustine. But this was not by any means the only work evoked by the complaint, nor the last. The accusation has more than once been renewed in modern times. The Christian apologists, far from admitting the truth of the indictment, insisted that instead of weakening the empire, Christians were actually strengthening it. Thus, in the first half of the 2nd century, the Epistle to Diognetus declared, quote, "What the soul is to the body, that are Christians to the world. The soul is imprisoned in the body, yet preserves that very body. And Christians are confined in the world, as in a prison, yet they hold the world together." End of quote. As we have seen, Tertullian insisted that Christians did more than pagans for the emperor, that they regarded him as appointed by God, and held that chaos was prevented only by the continued existence of the Roman Empire. By the way, that was often connected to the text in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, where Paul says that there's a restraint that's holding back the man of lawlessness. And this was used as a proof that Christianity was protected by the Roman Empire, but at the same time was holding the empire together. Origen said that by their prayers Christians were of more service to the realm than if they had fought for it in the legions, for by their petitions they, quote, vanquish all demons who stir up war and who disturb the peace, end of quote. Which were right, the critics or the apologists? In attempting to find the answer to this question, we must bear in mind several facts. First, we must recall that the symptoms of mortal illness were present in the Greco-Roman world before Christ was born. Precisely what were all of the causes, scholars have never agreed. But as to the sickness of that region in the 1st century before Christ, there can be no debate. To be sure, in every culture, even at the height of its prosperity, evidences of serious weakness can be found, and are by no means conclusive proof of impending collapse. However, in the second place, in the century before Christ was born, the evidences of disintegration were so palpable in wars, in the passing of the old order, and in the moral corruption, that the thoughtful feared early collapse. From this disaster, the Mediterranean basin was saved by Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar, especially the latter. Through the structure devised by Augustus, with the emperor at its head, peace, the Pax Romana, was established almost coincidentally with the coming of Christ. Then followed a period of material prosperity, hitherto unequaled in the Mediterranean world, although paralleled by a somewhat similar era in the contemporary China under the Han dynasty. No wonder that Rome and the empire were regarded as the bulwarks of civilization against anarchy. Yet in the third place, we must note that the Principate devised by Augustus did not cure, but only temporarily halted the course of the disease from which Greco-Roman culture was suffering. Except for the political structure given it by Augustus, that culture was ceasing to say or to do anything substantially new. In philosophy, the only fresh system of consequence which emerged in the first 2 centuries of the empire, so prosperous materially, was Neoplatonism, and that was chiefly a development from the earlier Platonism, and may possibly have in part owed to Christianity, the stimulus which brought it into being. After the 1st century, with its Augustine age and the generation which followed it, no contributions of first-class importance were made in literature or art. It was only through Christianity that a major impulse was at work to stir spirits in a jaded world to fresh creation. By the end of the 2nd century, the remedies applied by Augustus had begun to fail. Indeed, they may have aggravated the malady. Certainly the disease was breaking out afresh. As a 4th fact, we must note that the disease could not accurately be traced to Christianity. It had appeared before that faith had been born. Its fresh outbreak in the closing decades of the 2nd century was before Christians were sufficiently numerous to have become its inciting cause. A 5th consideration is the fact that Christianity did not prevent the disease from running its course and bringing the demise of the Roman Empire. Christianity did not save the Greco-Roman stage of civilization. If it was not the source of the disease from which Greco-Roman culture suffered, neither did it heal that culture of its illness. As a closely related fact, we do well also to recall that at its very outset, Christianity had not saved the Jewish community from which it sprang, nor had it brought even a temporary pause in the mad, headlong course which led that community to futile rebellion against Roman rule and to the destruction of Jerusalem and of the temple, which had been the center of Jewish worship. Jesus had clearly foreseen the tragic climax towards which events were heading and had offered an alternative course through which the catastrophe could have been avoided, but had the heartbreaking experience of meeting blind rejection. Next time, looking at the why. Why couldn't Christianity save, or why didn't Christianity save either the Greco-Roman civilization or the Jewish system? I'll put in a link to a book that profited me greatly, Rodney Stark. We've put it now on the basic library for Jehovah's Witnesses list. Why did Christianity conquer the Roman Empire? See you soon.